Making It Personal with Bishop William Johnson on Iowa Catholic Radio and iowacatholicradio.com.
Welcome to Making It Personal with Bishop Johnson. I'm Kelly Metra Collins with the Diocese of Des Moines. Today's show we're visiting with Susan Tassone, Catholic author and speaker about Halloween, All Hallows Eve, All Saints, and All Souls Day. But before we get to today's interview, let's find out what's on the Bishop's mind.
Good morning, Kelly.
Good morning.
For the sake of transparency, we have to acknowledge that the Catholic Foundation Southwest Iowa pilgrimage to Italy is ending this day
yes.
and are returning actually this day. So we are pre-recording here as well.
But, returning on this day. Okay.
Yeah. So, but what a trip, and a chance to see the Holy Father in the audience, Pompeii, other sites. So,
awesome.
It'll be tremendous. So, but here we are, the end of October. We quicken with saints. I'm looking forward to the conversation with Susan Tassone as well. But, last week, when we think about saints, one very dear to us here in the heartland, St. John Paul II, and his visit 43 years ago to Living History Farms, which it's very intriguing to me how it continues to pop up in places that event in 1979 at the Living History Farms continue to leave a mark on people's lives. You see it mentioned in people's obituaries. For instance, Martin Walsh III, who, along with his wife, helped to form Kurtz Walsh Builders Hardware Company. He died a month ago at the age of 91. He died on September 22nd. Condolences to his family. But it says in his obituary he was proud of his Irish heritage, and he attributed all of his success and his compassion to a strong work ethic and his Catholic faith. He was honored to have served as a member of the Diocesan Papal Visit Steering Committee that operated with respect to the 1979 visit of Pope St. John Paul II to Des Moines, Iowa. And you see where people they were in the choir, and this comes up in their obituary too. So we think about making it personal, so that's something that's really etched in the souls of people. But that great saint, and obviously left a mark on myself and others, I think, in terms of moving us. But as the farmers are bringing in the harvest, continue to do so, and that strong work ethic that not only Mr. Walsh has, but is kind of woven into the fabric of our diocese and of our people as well. John Paul, reflecting on the issue of work, he says we must look at the issue of work from above, like looking from the peaks of the Tatras Mountains. The very liturgy of the Mass encourages us to do this. This bread and wine will become in a moment the body and blood of the Son of God. Were it not for human work, there would be no bread and wine. Without bread and wine, there would not be among us the Son of God. God does not come to us through a creation of nature alone, holy trees, water, or fire. God comes to us through the first creation of culture, bread and wine. Work that creates bread and wine paves the way toward God. But every work has a part in this work, our work too. In this way, our work, the work of each of us, paves the way to God. The work then, the concern for independence, does not mean breaking away from others. Work is reciprocity. It is agreement. It is multifaceted dependence. Work creates a communion. And then interesting, he actually uses these words. We are living history. A living history means one that bears fruit. Thus, let us do the same. Let us become occupied with bearing fruit. So you think about the Living History Farms. Who knows how that was in his consciousness, too, still as he brought that forward. So I think, all of us if we're engaged perhaps in working with words, working with ideas, working with the message of the gospel and ministry, working with our hands and the great skills of carpentry and other things that people have, a great admiration and respect. And I think that's something that we continue to hold up. And I think, young people today, I think there's maybe a little bit of a comeback, too, with the trades and everything else. And is a real reflection of human dignity and is dignified not only in terms of the compensation they might enjoy, but the satisfaction that comes forward from that, too. So blessing is on all as we think about that. And then, of course, All Saints' Day coming up and Halloween. We'll be talking to Susan about this. I was faced with a very, very critical decision in the Pastoral Center on next Monday when we are having our social, the monthly socials that we have. And maybe this is only fueling the stereotype. But I was asked, can people wear costumes not only during the social, but all day long? And so I don't know if I want to see people's inner psyche manifested all day long. And, of course, they might put expectations on me wearing the dusting off the Batman cowl. But there you have it, Kelly. So I won't ask you what you're planning to wear.
No, I have no idea yet. All right, we're going to take a quick break, and when we return, we'll visit with Susan Tassone. You're listening to Making It Personal with Bishop Johnson on Iowa Catholic Radio and the Spirit Catholic Radio Network.
Support for Iowa Catholic Radio is provided by Knights of Columbus, Borman, and Pfeiffer agencies, serving Catholic families in Iowa, offering life insurance, long-term care insurance, disability insurance, and retirement annuities. The Knights of Columbus is a fraternal benefit society able to provide financial security to members and their families. Learn how Knights of Columbus agent Justin Wadley can help. 563-689-6801, 563-689-6801, or kfc.org.
St. Vincent de Paul helps so many people.
You're right, Zoe. St. Vincent de Paul Executive Director Steve Havman here. We are serving over 32,000 local residents with food, clothing, furniture, and financial assistance annually. We invite you to learn more about all of our life-changing programs that positively impact so many Iowans by simply Googling St. Vincent de Paul of Des Moines. Our mission is to help those in need become self-sufficient through education, community connectedness, and unconditional support. Help us, help others.
Even kids!
Welcome to Making It Personal with Bishop Johnson. On today's show, we're visiting with Susan Tassone, Catholic author and speaker, to talk about Halloween, All Hallows Eve, and All Saints and All Souls Day. Susan has written numerous books on purgatory, including The Rosary for the Holy Souls in Purgatory and Praying with the Saints for the Souls in Purgatory.
Yes, good morning, Mr. Tassone. Susan, it's great to have you, and you're a friend of Iowa Catholic Radio, John Leonetti, and other shows that you've been a part of. So thank you for making time for us on Making It Personal here. Just love to get into it here. We're looking to next week, the Feast of All Souls, and preceded by the Feast of All Saints with Halloween and all that. I have a brother who's a 51-year-old trial attorney, and he asked me for the St. Luke's Parish Festival if it would be all right for him to dress up as St. Luke, since he's going to be the MC. So that's kind of maybe of a piece with the kind of our attitude about Halloween and costumes and everything else. So just wonder what your thoughts might be. What would your counsel be on that?
I have a lot of thoughts, Father, Bishop. And the first is absolutely yes, dress up, because a lot of people swear off purgatory altogether. But when you do that, you're ignoring the facts of the Catholic origin of Halloween. Firstly, the name itself is Catholic since it comes from All Hallows Eve, and that really means that it literally refers to the night before All Saints Day. You know, there's a lot of dangers that come with the holiday nowadays. You know, we need to be aware of that, but we have to navigate them. So dressing up as your favorite characters from story of our real life heroes, people that we tend to consider the kind that have specific strengths, that have courage, those are the kinds of people that you want to dress up as, and how to develop those qualities that you yourself admire. So even if you dress up as a saint, your costume can do double duty at an All Saints party the next day. But yeah, definitely. You can't, but we have to be careful that not to have this trivializing of evil, these cheap thrills that make it easy for Satan to deceive us, because demons, witchcraft, evil, and all that supernatural stuff are very real, and it should be treated as such, because God explicitly commands us not to mess with the supernatural realm because of the potential danger that's found there. So that's the difference between the two. I hope that's clear.
So as I'm listening to you, obviously canonized saints would make the cut for you as people that we could emulate and dress up as. Perhaps, superheroes that represent good things.
Superman.
The kind of fanciful people, or certain people like that we might represent.
Bishop Jones.
Yeah, Jones. Well, yeah, he's definitely a work in progress here. So, but if kind of the other side of the psyche, the darker side of things, acknowledging like vampires or Batman, who has a dark side or things like that, and I've got a dog in the sun, so be careful. But anyway, working, with that, even if it at least promotes a certain acknowledgement, right? Even if you don't want to be consorting with these forces. So just trying to provoke you a little bit here.
There's nothing immoral about trick-or-treating or about dressing up as our favorite characters from stories or even our real-life heroes, We just have to need to be careful about the scarier side. As you said, dressing up as vampires or witches or demons doesn't do anything to glorify God, and it shouldn't be glorified either. You dress up as someone who inspires you, fictional or not, and consider what draws you to that person.
So, like
their courage, their kindness.
The baseball player Cal Ripken for his steadfastness in the modern day.
Yeah, we've got a lot of holy baseball players.
Okay,
yeah.
All right. Well, you kind of broadened the field there. So
there
thank
you go.
you
What are you
for
going
that.
to dress up as, Bishop?
Oh, that's a mystery. I don't want to give that away here. My staff may be listening. You know,
Just knock on your door.
We're riveted. We have no idea what it will be.
They have no idea. I think I've kind of been slotted for the Batman character. Anyway, moving right along. So, in the past, children asked for treats in exchange for prayers. That kind of trick-or-treating's kind of faded away. But any kind of historical context you could give us with that?
Yes, it was actually, it's fascinating. It could be confusing, too, but it was the ancient Celts of Ireland celebrated a festival at the end of every month. And this was the end of the month, happened to be October 31st. And it just so happened, one of the popes decided, well, because of a pope, I think it was Pope, oh God, help me a second here, Lord, Pope Gregory III, decided to observe All Hallows Eve, the day before All Saints' Day, to be October 31st. So it just happened to be at the same time that the Celts celebrated this festival. And so there was the connection. But in terms of the children, the British Isles had an All Hallows Eve tradition. That sounds very familiar to us. As you said, children would go door to door begging for a soul cake, S-O-U-L, soul cake, and promise in return to pray for the deceased of the giver's family. So that's where that exchange of a soul cake for a prayer started, where nowadays it's just, give me the best candy you got,
There's a local commercial here where the guy doesn't have any candy, so he hands out Fairway meats to the kids. So this is no promotion here, folks. All right, anyway.
So we have this exchange, that started, and then the tradition of dressing up, they say, is potentially connected with that custom. So that's really where it started. It was a tradition, of a festival, but it turned out that our Pope, designated All Hallows Eve the day before All Saints' Day on October 31st, and it was actually, so it was moved. The actual Feast of the Saints actually was May 13th, Bishop, but Pope Gregory III moved it to November 1st, which was the dedication of All Saints Chapel in St. Peter's in Rome. And then later in the 840s, Gregory IV commanded that All Saints be observed everywhere on November 1st, All Saints' Day. So it just happened to be, they were right next to each other.
Fascinating. Of course, May 13th.
Yeah, it is. People don't know that.
So, right? Yeah, no. And so instead of a joke or a riddle, the actual promise of intercessory prayer for those. So that the children, and in their great innocence and love, how they can intercede before the thrones and their angels in heaven constantly behold the Heavenly Father's face. So great, yeah. So, and of course we want people to go to Mass, and the monthly, the Celts, their monthly socials, we've continued that at the Pastoral Center, but even more, I think the tradition of First Friday, First Saturday, maybe I think the kind of Christianization of all those.
We may divert here. First Fridays, First Saturdays are so powerful. The First Saturday devotion, did you know, there's a great book called Fatima today, Father Andrew Apostoli wrote, who's one of the experts on Fatima, and he said it was Our Lady that moved Jesus to give us this First Saturday, because she didn't want those that offended her. There's 5 First Saturdays, and there's 5 different kinds of ways that she's offended. She wanted to save them. So she moved her son to grant this special First Saturday devotion so that they would be saved. That's the whole purpose of First Saturdays, in reparation for the sins. And also the great promise that she promises to give us the grace of final perseverance at the hour of death. And I'm throwing this in here, Father. I've been doing these, I don't want to tell you how many years. And I when you start praying, I don't know about you, Bishop, but I pray big, go big. I said, look, my family, not everyone goes to Mass, not everyone is in the state of grace. So I'm doing these First Saturdays and First Fridays in reparation of the sins against your Immaculate Heart, the Sacred Heart. And in return, I want you to make sure that every family member, past, present, and future, in the family tree will get the grace of a happy death. So that's how I apply my First Friday, First Saturdays.
Powerful. And of course, we've added another layer with the consciousness of the war in Ukraine and everything else.
Yes.
For world peace and Our Lady's Immaculate Heart and Russia.
And that's what she said to do.
Intercession. Mm-hmm. Yes.
You nailed it. Why do we do the First Saturdays? If you've read, there's a lot of articles that are coming back because it will speed up the era of peace to do these First Friday, First Saturday devotions. Extremely powerful.
So again, we commend to people the Masses on First Friday and First Saturday. And, of course, the Feast of All Saints, Tuesday, November 1st. And
yes.
I get to celebrate twice at our St. Ambrose Cathedral on the Vigil and then on the day itself. So
yes, and then you get to
That's
do
my favorite feast day other than Christmas and Easter, quite honestly.
Is All Saints Day?
Yes, I love it. Of course,
I'm impressed.
Of course, you ask me, Assumption, I'll tell you whatever the most upcoming one is, but beautiful. That rolls into something that's been very much a focus of your reflections, your writing, All Souls Day, this year, Wednesday, November 2nd. The significance of All Souls and how that unfolds, and the whole theme of purgatory. And so I'm going to serve it up to you right now. When we think about purgatory and some of the conceptions of purgatory, what is purgatory not?
That's one of my favorite questions. I've been researching purgatory for over 22 years, and it's I call one of the 5 truths. Purgatory is not a purgatory of punishment. The work of purgatory can be called punishment only in the sense that it will be spiritually and psychologically demanding as the acquisition of any virtue is, that is faith, hope, and charity. And so in life we prepare ourselves. I call those the soul virtues. They're the means that we prepare ourselves to be with Jesus in heaven. Faith brings us to Jesus, hope keeps us there, and selfless love fashions us in his image. Heaven is for Christ-like people. So what's God looking for? If these qualities of faith, hope, and charity were deficient in us, with God's help, we're going to be able to purge the remnants of our selfishness from your heart. So it's really a purifying process is what it is. Just scratch out that word punishment. It's a purifying process. The soul has to be prepared to be able to stand before the all holy God. He's all pure. He's all holy, and so your soul has to be all pure and all holy. It's a purgatory of healing and purification, not of punishment. I think too strong an emphasis on purgatory as punishment is the wrong way to look at it. God's not trying to get even with us, Bishop. It's not
There's
a way
no
of lowering
divine
the boom
accounting
on us.
book or a divine accounting book here in that way, and your great historical awareness. Maybe the church played into that, perhaps sometimes fascinating, quantifying days, indulgences, and things on that line.
Right, but that's been corrected. So it's not lowering the boom. It's not a chamber of horrors. It's out of God's infinite mercy and His unfathomable love for us that He's preparing His unprepared children for the joys of heaven. We were given a mission, and if we were given the grace countless times, and if people gave little notice to Him and didn't prepare, they're going to find themselves in a precarious position, and whose fault is that? But purgatory tells us that the merciful God doesn't regard our failures as final. He doesn't say, you failed me completely, or I'm through with you. He comes to help complete the work we've left undone. So purgatory is a place where shallowness and selfishness are overcome. It's a time of spiritual growth, of maturing. It's God's merciful option for the incomplete, not those who reject Him altogether.
So, you're giving me great hope. There's a message of great hope. I mean, that purgatory is there as God's great mercy. The church, as we think about the last things, death, judgment, heaven, and hell, purgatory, the fifth one, how the church has never formally pronounced that anyone has absolutely rejected God. Now, we might have a few candidates, each of us, that we might propose in history, but but the church has never formally declared that, right? So purgatory, whether we're obliged to pray for all people, but that's a message that God knows each of us better than we know ourselves, and knows what is lacking and how the infinite merits of Christ, mediated always through the church, right? This is not just Jesus and us. It's always mediated through the communion, the body of Christ in whole. Is that resonating with you? And so how can we, for each other, both in our kind of like the church militant, the church on its way, making its pilgrim way to the heaven. And then how do the saints, those who've entered the fullness of joy and beatitude, how does this all hang together?
Well, we are the church militant. We're the ones that are fighting, fighting the great fight between good and evil, and we're given the power and privilege to help the souls in purgatory. Nothing is done alone. The church militant reaches down to the church suffering, which is the souls in purgatory, and they join hands with the church triumphant, with the saints in heaven. Nothing is done alone. It's always done in union together. And so, God's justice demands expiation of our sins, and he places in our hands, the church militant, the means of assisting them. So it's a real power and privilege to relieve and release them. God's as grateful to us as if we helped himself. If you go through all the books I've read, most of my research is done up at Mundelein Seminary. They're the greatest collection of works on purgatory in the country. One of the greatest things that the saints did, number one thing they always did was pray for the souls in purgatory. It was one of their primary goals or missions, was to constantly pray for every saint you can imagine, all the way up to Mother Teresa. In fact, Mother Teresa, she didn't like her pictures taken and the flashing of the light, so she told our Lord, every time that light flashes, release a soul from purgatory. But the saints had a great love for the souls in purgatory, and we do too. The church militant. I worked for Cardinal George's office. I was his mission development officer, and we raised mass stipends for the dead or for any other intentions. And these mass stipends went to missionary priests all over the world. And so I learned what I discovered, Bishop, over those 6 years being with him in that office, the great love that our people, everyone, Catholic or not, have for their dead. That bond is never broken. Anything
Amen.
that they can
and
do.
Susan, we're just going to have to pause here for a little bit, but hope you'll stay with us.
We're going to take a quick break. You're listening to Making It Personal with Bishop Johnson on Iowa Catholic Radio and the Spirit Catholic Radio Network.
Support for Iowa Catholic Radio provided by the Sarah Vocations Ministry, including the St. Sarah Club of Des Moines and the Sarah Club of Council Bluffs. Sarah is an apostolate of the Worldwide Catholic Church dedicated to fostering and supporting priesthood and religious vocations. Sarahans strive to accomplish their mission through prayer, fellowship, and service to the bishop, priests, sisters, and all in religious formation, and in doing so to increase their own holiness. Learn more at joinsarah.org, joinserra.org. Thank you, Sarahans, for your support of Iowa Catholic Radio.
Would you like to get more involved as a volunteer? Intervisions Healthcare empowers at-risk women facing an unplanned pregnancy to make life-affirming decisions, but our nursing staff can't do it alone. Our Unplanned Pregnancy Clinic seeks dedicated advocates, receptionists, and nursing volunteers to meet the needs of hundreds of at-risk patients we see each year. If you are a people person who wants to help moms with unplanned pregnancies, contact us today at 515-440-2273 or visit ivhcare.org.
Welcome back to Making It Personal with Bishop Johnson, and we are back with Susan Tassone.
So thank you for kind of unfolding that, and I just want to be clear for our listeners that as we speak and make reference to the prior and broader use of the term church militant, that we are all kind of pilgrims, we're marching, we're soldiers on our way to heaven, milites, that phrase. So distinguishing that in terms of the larger body of the church from a particular group that's kind of latched onto that name and kind of identifying themselves for their own particular mission and agenda. So just wanted to hold that out as a distinction there, and maybe a little disclaimer. But Cardinal George, do you think he's within the ranks of the saints, not officially canonized yet? But
I had the honor of working with him. He can convert anybody. he was brilliant, and he brought it down to, if he's talking to college kids, he brought it down to their level. He had a great love for the souls in purgatory. He wanted all his priests to preach on purgatory because we don't preach on it enough, he said. And I know I can say this now because he's died, but he would get a salary as being the director of the missions, and he would get a salary, and we would get enormous amounts of checks. I mean, we're not talking little amounts. He would turn it over to the missions office and have mass set for priests, because it's been said priests and consecrated religious are the most forgotten souls because we tend to canonize them. Mm-hmm. We canonize everybody, but I think the priests and consecrated religious are are the most abandoned. So he made sure that whatever he was earning, he gave a pretty hefty portion to have masses offered for the priests in purgatory, which leads me to tell you what's the most important thing we could do for the holy souls is have a mass offered, either attend mass or offer your mass, offer your communion, offer your indulgence. People go to mass and they don't realize they can carry an indulgence. They can offer their communion. The whole mass they can offer for a living or deceased person, and to do that. And there's also Gregorian masses, Father Bishop. I can touch on that. I don't want to take over. Do you want me to mention Gregorian masses?
Let's maybe just for a little bit, because it's such a passionate interest of yours. And of course, this pious custom of the mass intention is not paying for a mass. It's not a commercial exchange, but a material sacrifice joined to the more comprehensive spiritual sacrifice that one is making. And of course, benefiting those priests, particularly around the world, who don't have the material means. I think here in the United States, we're largely very well provided for by the people of God. So that's not the thing, but that spiritual provide. And even our pious custom that I'm trying to resurrect within the diocese more, where priests themselves will offer 3 Mass for a brother priest who's deceased. So that's a facet of that. We only have a couple minutes. As time is going so quickly. Faustina, St. Faustina in purgatory.
Yes. Yeah. How did I end up with Faustina when I was in purgatory? well, she, I discovered Faustina's diary in the 80s before she was a household name, and it fascinated me. I love to read diaries. And when I read with her diaries, what I saw, she invites us to learn how a couple things, and I did 6 books on her. She invites us to learn how to live the message of conversion, how to pray for the conversion of children, how to convert yourself, which was phenomenal. We have a book called Praying with St. Faustina for the Conversion of Sinners. She also shows us how to avoid purgatory, so I have a Faustina book on purgatory, and she also shows us how to be more faithful in praying for others, the living and deceased, and for the world's troubles. In fact, there was a little section that is hidden in that diary, Bishop, where she was just distraught by, she says, nobody loves you, Jesus. Nobody pays attention to you. Nobody prays. Nobody does this. No. And she says, I can't stand it. And he listened very quietly, and he said, I understand. And you know what he said for her to do? He said, pray the chaplet of mercy.
Okay. All right. Kind of the glue that's kind of keeping this world from spinning off into oblivion in this way. You had mentioned it in another brief chat about the tears and the distinction that St. Faustina holds up to.
Yes, she was.
And this might be our last little point here with about 30 seconds left.
She cried a lot. We're crying a lot. You read the news, the children, the suffering. I'm in tears about this. But he says, pray. Pray the chaplet, pray the rosary. And I wrote a book called Jesus Speaks to Faustina and You. It won first place with the Press Association, and it's the whole diary of what he said to her in a day-by-day format, because a lot of people can't absorb that diary. Neither could I.
So the distinction between tears will be our last word here. Okay.
The tears we cry different kinds of tears. When we cry tears of joy, they discover that tears are willowy. When we cry tears of pain and sorrow, the tears are shards of glass. So our tears are even different in the ways in which we cry.
Wow. May there be more willowy tears than shards of glass. And thank you for opening up the skylight, if you will, Susan Tassone, and helping to focus on ultimate things. Thank you, and we'll look forward to another conversation in the future.
Bishop, you're awesome. You know your stuff, and may you get to purgatory. May you get to heaven before they know you're not
on earth anymore.
The Italian's giving me an Irish blessing here. Thank you.
No matter what, we'll get you out of purgatory.
Thank you. This has been another edition of Making It Personal with Bishop Johnson.
You can hear Making It Personal with Bishop William Johnson every week on Iowa Catholic Radio and iowacatholicradio.com.
Support for Iowa Catholic Radio and Making It Personal is provided by Sarah Vocations Ministry. Learn more at joinserra.org.